See yourselves up there? I can turn it on, but
Not
you
at
guys
all.
are okay. It should be up in just. We're good.
We're good? We're live?
We are live streaming.
All right, everybody. Welcome to our CSC Leon County's Executive Committee meeting. Today is September 7th, and I'm calling the meeting to order at 4:02 p.m. All right, so with that, I would like for us to take a roll call. So I'm assuming it's going to be.
I definitely can, yes. Councilmember Paul Mitchell,
Here.
Councilmember Terrence Watts,
Here.
Chair Sandra Glenn,
Here.
and Mr. Christopher Rowe.
Here.
We have president and we have a quorum.
Awesome. All right, great. Thank you so very much. We'll go ahead and get started. All right, with that, I would like for us to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion for anyone to approve the agenda?
I'll put the agenda.
All right, we have a
Second.
motion and we have a second. So a motion by Mr. Mitchell, a second by Mr. Watts. The agenda is now approved. And now we are at the place in our agenda where we are open for general public comment, but I do not see anybody from the public here,
It's
so.
a small crowd, just that.
There are no public comments at this time.
No public comments. Okay, sounds good. All right, we will move forward. All right, the purpose of this meeting, guys, the reason why we are here is to evaluate the executive director's performance criteria. And so with that, we have the wonderful general counsel, Mr. Christopher Rowe here with us, who is going to walk us through some potential options so that we can make some recommendations to move forward to the full council. So Mr. Rowe.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, excuse me, the employment agreement for the executive director, section 6 provides for evaluation on an annual basis. It lays out basically a process and a timeline for how that evaluation would unfold. The timeline is conveniently summarized on page 10 of the committee's agenda packet. Shows the various steps and potential dates by which the evaluation process can unfold. It begins really with this committee's meeting to work on a evaluation instrument, basically a form that will document the performance evaluation given by each council member to the executive director on an annual basis. To make the committee's job a little easier, we obtained example performance evaluations utilized by other children's services councils around the state. So your agenda package should have 5 examples: Palm Beach County, Broward County, Jacksonville, St. Lucie County, and also a 5th one, did I say Broward already? So these examples are pretty similar in several respects. Some are a little bit more involved, some are a little more streamlined, but they all break down basically into various components, or one calls them accountabilities, basically an overall area that is asking for input and feedback on. Some of these ask for comment or allow for comment after each question presented in the evaluation form. Some reserve comment to a block for comment for that purpose at the tail end. You could do it either way. You could do it some other different way. Each utilizes a scale as far as how you would grade the performance of the executive director. Sometimes it's 1 to 5, sometimes it's 1 to 4. Scaling is pretty typical for performance evaluations, though not required. Even there, you could deviate if you want to. You could do away with scaling entirely. Though I know that the steps in the agreement, as they're laid out in the employment agreement, do contemplate some sort of scaling. In fact, they say that if you are inclined as a council member to give a score of needs improvement, you've got to seek aware of that in advance and give her a chance to respond. So, and you have some flexibility here. You can utilize a form that is similar to those in the packet. You can start with one basic form and then add materials or questions from some of the others. You can mix and match. Really, it's up to you, so long as it meets the requirements laid out in the agreement. I'm happy to act as the point person or the scribe who sort of formulates the instrument, if that would be helpful. I take very close notes today during the discussion and deliberation as to what you would like to see in that, if you want me to act in that role, or I'm happy to review something if one of the committee members prefers to take that on. Whatever is your pleasure in that regard, I'm happy to help wherever I can. So if you'd like, I'm glad to walk through the examples. Like I say, they're relatively similar in the way they're set up. One in particular for Miami is probably the most involved. It has a weighting, like the questions are weighted. I can quite follow how that worked. But it also contains, after each question, an opportunity for Sika to self-evaluate, to give her own grade. How does she think she's meeting that particular competency or accountability? None of the others have that. Again, there's no law that dictates what this thing needs to look like or how it needs to be performed. It's really up to the committee to make a recommendation to the full council what they think is a fair and reasonable way of going about giving her meaningful feedback, evaluation, but not making it so overly complicated that it's onerous to the council members who have to perform the evaluation.
Thank you. Yes, will you please walk us through the examples? Oh, please, absolutely.
Sure, thanks. Mr. Rowe, this is an annual review. When did Sika sign her contract with us?
It was January,
She started January 1st.
she started January 1st, was the start date. It was actually signed a little bit before that, in December.
Okay, all right. Okay, so this gives us,
So
so we're essentially, well, we're
late. And that was your point at the last meeting, because we realized that we should have given this to her in June or July.
But except I remember that, and I went back and I looked, and we're late, but we're not late, because she has an employment agreement, and the employment agreement has a job description, and so we're just evaluating her, we would be evaluating her regardless. Like, I don't think it's fair that we evaluate her on some new criteria that isn't in the job description. If we want to do that, that's perfectly fine for next year. But for this year, I just want to make sure that we are evaluating Sika on just the job description that she agreed to and we agreed to back a year ago.
So I completely agree with you. That's the exact same comment that I had from Mr. Rowe earlier today. When I went back and I looked at her job description, I said, this is what we hired her to do. And it was very clear and laid out in these particular criteria. I think that our evaluation should be in line, step by step,
Yeah.
with exactly what those criteria are.
And it was, I can't remember if it was the full board meeting or it was another executive, I think it was the full board meeting. And I mentioned, Mr. Watts, you made the point, and I thought it was a great point. You can't evaluate somebody on something they're not very clear on what you're evaluating them on. And the job description is very, very clear. So, okay, all right. I just want to make sure that I understood what we were doing and the instrument that we are going to recommend to the board that everybody evaluate her on. Okay.
So to further expand on that, if you all look at page 11, because this is where I went back to, so what I've asked Mr. Rowe to do is to walk us through the different ways these different CSCs have evaluated. But I do think that for her evaluation, we should be evaluating her on her ability to plan, her ability for financial and program management, operations management, community relationships and advocacy, and then board relations. I think, was there another one? Yeah, and then professional evidence or qualifications. I think anything outside of that is unfair. They completely, so if we can agree, and I'd love to get your thoughts on that, Mr. Watts, I would like to propose that we stick to what we said we are going to evaluate her performance on, and then I think we can decide what that format's going to look like.
Sure, can I, before we go there, can I ask,
Please, yes.
did have some questions?
Sure.
I hate that you said next to me and not across this. So it's like, okay, but, so with the timeline, you're thinking about this from, okay.
Can he not move over here, Mr. Rowe? Like, the camera, I apologize. It's really hard, right? I'm so sorry.
100% can.
Okay, I just didn't know if the camera was,
It'll just be
It's just
his
so we
back. That's fine.
yeah, okay.
Yes.
It'll still pick up all audio.
Okay, I apologize,
Better notice.
Mr. Okay, all right, thank you so
I'm
much.
not used to Paul having the quiet voice today.
It's peaceful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear it. Okay.
No, not for It was well earned and I just thought it's coming. On a Wednesday.
Oh, my
I
goodness.
lost it Sunday night and every bit of it was earned.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's New
Okay.
Orleans. It was New Orleans.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, yes, it was. I felt like I was on the field. Did you see my block at the end?
We're so proud of you. Oh.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. So, okay, I did have a quick, maybe like 3 questions. So on, the actual page, 6, not 6, 3, section 6 of the evaluation. And, this is already approved. This is what was approved. Okay. Okay. And so one of the, I didn't understand, it's not clear the process. So the executive committee, this is the evaluation. So the evaluation criteria should be determined by the council and provided to Ms. Green at least 6 months prior to the formal evaluation. And I was wondering whose role is that to keep up with those timelines? So, for example, and I'll keep thinking about this since we had the last meeting. So Kasika won't be involved per se, right, in that process. So who's tracking that? Like she has 2 weeks to do, like whose role is that?
A staff member, and I was not sure if it was Holly or Jacinta, someone has prepared for our benefit it lays out the steps, very, very convenient. That appears on page 10 of your agenda package.
Okay.
So that from this point out, it will lay out, here are the steps involved, here are the dates by which
Gotcha.
each step has.
Okay, all right, okay.
We did miss the 6-month advance thing. but-
Yeah. And Sika was the one that realized that.
And Sika caught it, yes,
Right.
Sika caught it. She is not overly upset, as best I can tell, that we missed that.
Okay.
I guess the point is to make sure that she has adequate time to review and make sure that she doesn't have any fundamental issues or problems with it, but it's not so significant a breach of the contract.
Okay.
But it's an issue.
Okay, I was just curious, just moving first, like, is that the committee, or are we supposed to be, okay, so.
Yes, by the way, and in fairness to the 2 of you, I guess I'm the only surviving.
Executive committee.
It was the executive committee that was responsible. The new executive committee, the much improved executive committee has really the alert of Sika. Now on a going forward basis, we'll be all caught up.
Okay.
Again, the important thing is we are only evaluating her on that which
Right.
everybody agreed to back in November of last year, or whenever that was, that we signed.
The instrument has basically written itself.
Yes, that's really what I'm trying to say.
It just needs to be packaged.
Okay,
So to Terrence's point, I apologize.
no, go ahead.
Can we please make a request to the staff that for the executive committee, whoever's on it, 6 months prior to, we would like an alert that says, guys, it is time for you all to make sure you're reviewing the criteria for the exec. And so, I'm sorry, but I don't know who's going to be in these chairs in the next several months. So I'm asking the staff to please be the alert. So something on a calendar somewhere that says, we've got to remind the executive committee that now is the time to review that criteria.
But that's only this is only a kind of a one-time thing unless we want to change it. That's
Right, unless we want to change it, but we may, right? I think we should look at it,
Yes.
and decide if we're changing this or not, so.
We have a timeline that staff maintains that we just hadn't incorporated this into, and we will add it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. And I promise this will then lead to, okay. And so the next one is like the next thing on here says formative evaluation may be provided to Green at any time by the executive committee. And I was reading that almost as if this was like along the road we were providing feedback to her before. Is that?
The point of this is that if the council identifies issues during the course of a given year that merit immediate attention, as opposed to waiting until the end of the year, then you're allowed to do that. But you don't feel that as a council or an executive committee that have to wait till year's end to say, hey, you need to improve in this particular area. Or you're doing a great job. It doesn't necessarily have to be criticism, but
Right.
this is just meant to say this isn't just limited to that one time a year thing. If something comes up in the course of the year that warrants feedback at the time. You can
Okay.
do something.
And that would only be, and this is my last question on this. And that would be, because also I was reading it almost as if the council, it reads as if the council, the whole council has to provide an evaluation. And then the executive committee, almost like two separate deals, but we would be the ones doing the final. It kind of confused me a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was not my understanding, and I'm glad that you brought that up. So just to make sure I'm understanding the process, we are reviewing the criteria. We submit it to the board so that the full board has an opportunity to weigh in and approve it, right? Once it's approved, we give it to Sika. She has an opportunity to provide feedback. We give her that formal and say, you will be evaluated on this. Once that is agreed, then every single board member completes an evaluation of Ms. Green, like the entire board does. Then the executive committee summarizes that. I hope it's not us, but anyway, that's what it says. So that's a totally different question, but.
It is a member of the executive committee who will collect and summarize. A member collects and summarize. And candidly, I think it should be one of us that collects and summarizes, and each one of us has the ability to collect and summarize. But, it's sort of incumbent upon the executive committee to do it and not to sort of shirk our responsibility and give that to a member of the staff to do.
Okay.
Just because let's say something was bad.
Right.
I don't think anybody thinks that, but let's just say that we were having a bad time with our executive director. It would not be fair to someone who works for her.
I agree.
To collect.
And I don't think, honestly, I don't think that either Holly or Jacinta or Dina, but I did not have a problem asking Mr. Rowe. I mean, honest with you, for our general counsel, just because I do think we are the ones that need to look at it and we take that to the council. But to the full body of council. But I thought that once it all comes in, I was prepared to ask Mr. Rowe, can you make sure they're all collected and you're summarizing it, and then that comes back to us for discussion before we go back to the full board on that? Do you feel as if that's a shirking of
I'm just looking at E where it says a member of the executive committee shall not collect and summarize. Now, I think it certainly could be in consultation with the general counsel. And by the way, I think anything in this can have sort of an implied parenthetical statement in consultation with the general counsel.
All right.
So I think yes, but I would like it to be one of us that is a member of the executive committee, because again, not to suggest that something would be wrong or that there would be a relationship between the general counsel. I'm trying to envision, this is not Sika and it's not Mr. Rowe. It's like
somebody else.
Yes.
Right.
And things are going very wrong.
Right.
How would you do it? Well, you would do it by the executive committee having it. But at any point, a member of the executive committee who's been given a responsibility could work that responsibility in consultation with the general counsel.
Okay, and I think that's fair, I would like to be in consultation with the general counsel, says, okay, this is what we have, this is where we are. We're still 100% accountable. We're the ones that need to talk to the full council about, this is the summary, this is what everybody said, and we can move that forward. But my concern was us getting, 10 of these and stacking, all right, Terrence, we need you to come back with a summary. I just think that might be a hardship for some to do. Okay.
Yeah. So we, Dr. Gorman and I briefly spoke this afternoon about the meeting and the process. And what I suggested was, I don't know if we can do it this year, but it would be very helpful if when the evaluation form is completed, it were done electronically. And if it's done electronically, it would make it very easy for the executive committee member to do the summarizing and tabulating as opposed to a stack of 5-page, 10 handwritten answers and going through. It may be that we can do so through a PDF with fillable format or a Word document. something like that.
When I looked at this, it's kind of like, there are only, it's 10, but there aren't that, it's not like it's a 200 question survey. How's she doing? In these categories, how's she doing? On a scale of 1 to 5. I I think everybody can, she got 10 5s or 8 5s and 2 4. Look, I'm not volunteering
And
to
that's
do
what
it.
it sounds like.
But I don't think it would make it easier if it was electronic, but it's, I mean, that's just.
Qualtrics an option, because that,
Qualtrics is expensive, so if you want to buy if you can buy a license, let's.
Wait, no.
You don't need to do that. You can use it for free.
This is-
Yeah, Google Forms, SurveyMonkey, we actually have a subscription to
Right.
SurveyMonkey. I think the question would just come down to if you want it anonymous or not, and everyone's required to do
I
it.
don't think you can, we
Not-
talked about that.
No, so as long, then they would have to put in their email address or identify themselves somehow, and then it'll compile it for you automatically.
Doesn't SurveyMonkey tell you where it's coming from though? I mean,
It can, you can either turn it off or turn it on. For the purposes of this, if staff would stay out, we could easily set you up with, just a Google form,
right,
that would go directly to your email. So as it gets completed, it can email you a PDF version of every single one that gets completed, and then it would give you an Excel spreadsheet or technically a Google sheet that would tabulate it for you.
right.
Okay,
And the only thing we would be doing is the council member comments, if they provided them, would be summarized, but at least from my perspective is, well, one, I'm not going to write, a 17-page narrative on how wonderful she's doing. I think she's doing a great job. I think I could do a one-liner on some of them and not necessary on most of them. The summary of that would be pretty simple. Again, it's just,
that's if it's electronic, because I know when we were discussing earlier, where we're gonna compile a paper form and have everybody fill it out, I thought that would be a bit much. But I would love to have this done electronically, and if we can do it electronically, I think it makes it a whole lot easier if we're able to follow a process and laid out. I agree, okay, that works.
and the comments are just automatically
Right.
filled in.
Populated, right, okay. So
And
here
then
we
we
go.
don't have to actually write. I was like, wait,
Okay, yeah.
much better. I think with my fingers now.
Thank you, I'm
That's,
sorry,
no, I'm
any other
good,
questions?
I'm good,
Okay.
that helps with the next piece of it.
Okay,
So would it be helpful then to go through the other?
Yes, please, thank you. So, go ahead, then I'll comment afterwards, go ahead, thank you.
So in your packet, I think the very first one is Broward. And although the evaluation form does appear to span several pages, it really is just a relatively short series of questions. I think it's 7 or 8 in all. And you can see that they somewhat match the scope or description of services from the solicitation by which SECO was hired. They have a general category of communications and then some bullet point information as to what is expected in the area of communications. Is the person effectively expressing ideas and thoughts verbally, writing, et cetera? Same with fiscal responsibility, works within approved budget. And then each question has a block or comment on that particular question. This one uses a 5-point scale and exceeds expectations, 5 all the way down to 1, which is below expectations. I did not see the job descriptions for each of these CSCs to know whether they match on with the questions. Maybe they do, they don't. I once started on pointing out to me that it would be nice if they tracked the job description. I looked and said, it kind of almost does in some ways. Well, Holly, when we put together this job description, we used, it should track, and Broward was one of the ones we relied heavily on. So it would make sense that it would. I don't remember, it was Broward, but it was somebody else.
Broward, St. Lucie, and Martin is the 3 that we pulled from, and then I believe in the committee, they actually went through and circled which elements they liked, and they were putting together the position description.
Yeah.
And then they edited that, but the categories, I want to say, pulled from Broward's and St. Lucie's for the most part.
And so we could, what it looks like all of them have done this. Again, I remember the job description,
Right.
all that
It's in here.
pile of stuff. But not just, no, not the one we created, but the one
They
that
had,
was,
okay.
you know, that corresponds with their
Okay.
evaluation. The, the committee, it seems to me like you could just go through the job description and use this template,
Absolutely,
but based on
the job description.
the job description that we
Absolutely.
created. Now, again, we're this much smarter a year and a half later, and people may have different ideas. I don't think it's fair that we evaluate her on those different ideas, but if anybody on the council says, you know what? Yes, I said okay to it, but I never really thought that, the ability to write with your left hand was important. I
Right,
now do, you
Right.
know?
but that, we add that on for the next year.
Yes, ma'am. That's
Right,
exactly right.
right,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
Or perhaps that sort of comment could be through the comments, right, through the narrative description.
Right.
Left-handed would be a nice thing.
Yeah.
Coming from the guy who writes it, that's right.
Okay, so I do think that we're all agreeing, I know I have already agreed, and Terrence, I'd love to get your comments on what the criteria would be for this. I think what he's showing us are the different formats, so we're deciding, do we want it to look like the Broward County format? Do we want it to look like, who's the next one, I don't know, this other one, the KHA? The Jacksonville format. So I think those are the differences that I see in the way they have laid out. And I think we need to decide which one of these do we like or do we not like any of them, want to build our own. Yes.
I did like the Jacksonville format,
Okay.
and I also like the Palm Beach format.
Which one was the Palm Beach one?
It's gonna be your last.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
The biggest thing that I printed that I kind of noticed in the examples is really deciding on your, like, the Likert scale that you want to use. Do you want to use a 4-point or do you want to use a 5-point? And so to me, that was the biggest difference. Jacksonville uses a 4-point with a don't know or not applicable, whereas most of the others use a 5-point. There's pluses and minuses for a 4-point versus a 5-point. One could argue that 5-point is nice because if you think they're middle of the road, you can choose that. Other evaluators really choose you to pick a side, so they prefer a 4-point. So I just wanted to throw that out as one of the, I know you're talking about format, that ultimately if you're going to be electronic, you're going to be stuck with the format that Google Forms gives you or SurveyMonkey gives you. So really deciding on that Likert scale as opposed to how pretty it is. But
Yeah,
to me,
I'm in favor of a 5-point. So, yeah. But the reason I like the Jacksonville format, if we can fit our information in there, I do like the clean look of it. The comments box, but
That's cool. I did not have one particular preference over the other. I think if I leaned towards anything, it would have been the first one simply because it's probably the first one I saw. And it was extremely easy. It's like, here's the criteria. This is what we're looking for. How does she rank here? And it was just real simple. And it's like, yes, here's the score. Do I have any comments? And then I can keep going. But I'm perfectly comfortable with either of the formats. Yeah.
So I like the 5-point. I dream of 5 points. I think it does. It gives you,
Yeah.
and it gives people, but I don't know which one is Duval.
Kids Health Alliance.
Oh,
The second one.
KHA. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah.
Whose was this one? St. Lucie. Okay.
No, which one
It
is
must be
that?
online as well.
It just, it nowhere did it, and these were all printed out for me. So it gives place, I liked this, the form, again, I like 5 more than 4, but I just like the simplicity. It looks a lot like KHA.
Yeah. Yeah.
All we're doing is maybe taking KHA and making
The
this
criteria.
look like criteria we hired her on with a 5-point scale, except that the KHA, it looks like has 4 points, unless you count the fifth being
Yeah.
not
And I-
applicable.
How do y'all feel about, I don't like the not applicable, I mean, I prefer.
Amen. You-
Okay, yeah, I don't
you
like it.
have to have a
You have to have
position.
a point, a position, I agree. Okay, so what I'm hearing, I'd just like to repeat, is that we are leaning, we prefer a 5-point scale, with, and not applicable as, is not an option for them. And then I think the options that we do like, that we saw with the 5-point scales are, high achievement as 5, proficient as 4, needs improvement as 3. Oh, am I doing this wrong?
Yeah,
No, okay, yeah. Exceeds expectations is 5, thank you. High achievement is 4, proficient is 3, needs improvement is 2, and below expectations is 1.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And I think we like the simplicity of the simplest format that we have with these. And we want to use the criteria that's outlined in her performance evaluation.
And that simplicity is the KHA, which is Duval County. I think gives in that every one of the questions will have a box if you choose to comment.
And it's not required,
Right, no
right?
obligation. Okay.
Well,
So,
sorry,
go ahead.
if it's lower than a 2, right? Did I read that too?
2 or
Well, I'm sorry, I'm using that lightly, but I thought I read something that if you're going to try to below standard, it.
It requires a
Her
comment.
agreement requires before she can get a score of needs improvement, which I think would be 2.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That she has to do. And I don't think that that's individual council evaluations, that would be average
Overall, yeah.
of the 10.
You know what, though, I'll say this. Again, let's take Sika and let's take the town bus out of this. The 30 years from now, the executive director, and they're gonna rely heavily on what we're doing today. I think if you're going to get, what's a 1, 5 being the best, you're just blowing us away. What's a 1?
Below expectations.
So if you're at below expectation and needs improvement, those are kind of one and the same, I think, but nonetheless, by making it a 1, you're saying below
You're at-
expectations
yes.
is even worse than needs
Right.
improvement. I think if you get a needs improvement, if as a council member, you are going to give someone a needs improvement, you must have an idea of
Why?
a suggestion. Like, Sika, I think you're doing great here. You're doing a poor job at a community outreach. And here's my comments. You're not showing up at meetings. You're not engaging the public. I purposely picked that one because to me, she's like a standard all to herself. But that should be in there. And I think as council members, if we're going to say that about someone,
Documented.
you just, as simple as one, a comment should be,
Sure.
I'm the executive director, like, hey, it's fine that you just want to give me a 2, but can you tell me?
So that's in her evaluation that will be included.
But that's only if collectively she received
Okay.
a 2 or lower from all 10 of us.
Okay, so can we make the option that as we are completing this on SurveyMonkey or Google Docs or whatever, if the selection is either a 2 or a 1, then a comment is required? And I think it's easy to program that in. So if you score a 2 or 1, and then we can put that as part of the instructions too. So, right.
Yeah, when I comment on Lowe's, how they're
Right.
doing, if I give them a low thing,
You're
it's,
gonna tell us why.
I'm really sorry, you've
Yeah.
got a problem, can you tell us what your
Yeah.
problem was? Yeah.
That's fair enough.
I want to add something to that. And, even working with the state of Florida, goes back to like prior to, I think we may need to inform the council members that to not have provided that guidance to whoever it is before the evaluation and then just to slam a 2 or a 1, that's a no-go with the state of Florida. You have to have some type of documentation where you've been coaching or bringing that to their attention along the way.
Yeah, this is not, position, you don't need that.
Oh, it's that way. Okay, so you don't, okay,
Both, for both parties, it's an outlet.
okay.
So, but I know what you're saying. by the way, I think we're lucky. I think we're lucky on many fronts, but I don't think there's going to be any twos. And if there are, I want to see it. I want to see the response. Having said that, people are entitled to their opinion. I'm not going to guess what their opinion is. We are fortunate that we have an executive director who I think is meeting, if not exceeding, all of our expectations. And I don't think we're going to need to worry about that. It is an outflow position, and no, it's like, the governor can walk into his chief of staff and there has to be no documentation. It's like, you're
out.
James, you're gone, seem like a nice guy, but things are just not working out.
But I still think that for her evaluation, we should tell her why, if she gets either a 2 or 1.
I'm totally
That needs to
with
be
you.
required, yeah. Okay.
Oh, I'm so 100% with you.
Okay.
Because by the way, she could be exceeding all expectations everywhere else. Like if you want her to improve on something, tell her what it is.
Right.
It's not like we think you're, ready we want to fire you. And certainly people are amazing at, 5 out of the 6 criteria. And there may need to be improvement on 1.
Right.
They still may qualify for a raise. It's just that one area.
They
So.
can improve it, absolutely. Okay. So any questions about what we have decided on? Okay, I think everybody's clear. All right. So we want a simple format, very similar to the Jacksonville one or even this one. We want a 5-point scale. Not applicable is not an option. And the requirement is that if anybody scores a 2 or a 1, they're required to leave a comment. And then for any other scores, comments are optional.
Do you want a general comment block at the tail end? Comments that aren't otherwise.
That would be a vision, isn't it?
I do too, yeah, because these other comments are specific to that particular area, but I might just say, I really like your yellow glasses, something, you never know, that doesn't speak specifically to these things, yeah, so I like that at the end.
St. Lucie also has as their penultimate question, provide your overall rating of the executive director. You like that idea, or do you want it to just be in the categories?
I'm not inclined to like that one, but.
Yeah, because that is, I just don't, I think that's kind of loosey-goosey,
It may conflict,
Yeah.
What if they score her like 3 and then get provided an overall rating of 5? I mean, it's like, what are we gonna do with that? Yeah, so, no, yeah.
But in that final comment box, that if you choose to put a comment there, that is where you can sort of summarize how you feel without giving a number. Or if you so choose, you can say in that box, if this were a number, I'd give her a 5 as my overall level. Yeah. I'm sure you're going to, because we're bringing this to the board as our recommendation
Correct.
for the vehicle by which we are going to evaluate Sika. And we're just going to explain to the board, hey, I'd like to draw your attention to this is how we did it. And this is the 2 and the 1. We want you to fill this in
Absolutely.
so that we can just make sure that the other
They
side
understand,
people
right.
are going.
I think that as we've kind of rolled this out, I would like for the rest of the board to understand that we are evaluating her based on her job description. I think they need to hear that. That we do expect that they will all contribute to this, when that's going to happen and what that's going to look like. And then just some information about, we are going to ask for comments, it's required, but if you give her a score lower than this, that's required that you have to provide a comment. And just make sure they understand the process before they walk away and screw her over and not even realize what they're doing, right? And so that's the plan.
And that they get that issue of 2 or 1, you have to put a comment.
Correct.
That is our recommendation to them. That was not dictated by
Absolutely.
okay.
That's correct, absolutely. Yeah.
More, to me, it's important that they understand, Paul, Terrence, Dr. Glenn, we all said yay to this, but there's 7 of you that could all
Can say
say
no,
no.
and absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. We'll make that clear to
Let me
them.
ask you, Chair, so Segal will get the information, and she has to respond to each section first, right? She has to respond to the information and submit that to,
Part of the overall timeline contemplates that before the council members start filling out the
Right.
evaluation form, it has to be provided to her.
Right.
Opportunity.
Just for her to review it.
Yes.
She doesn't have to complete a self-assessment,
That's
right?
right, nor are you required to include after each question an opportunity for her to self-evaluate.
so,
One of the examples does have that, but for each question,
so it says the executive director will provide written input on each item on the evaluation instrument to the council.
The instrument.
The instrument.
So that's what's gonna be built out. So she's gonna look, so it's like looking at, what are you grading me on? Do I think this is fair? So do I think it's fair that you're using a 5-point scale instead of a 10-point scale? Do I think it's fair that you're allowing the comments after each section? So she's letting us know her feedback on the actual instrument. She doesn't have to complete it.
Okay,
And Madam Chair, to me, and again, I am, I'm not volunteering you for this, but I kind of think that that's the role of the chair, that the Survey Monkey or the Google Forms, whatever it is, collectively puts this together. So I really do think that as chair, I should go to you,
Okay,
and again, in consultation with the general counsel. I don't want to burden you with that.
yeah,
And that the final evaluation, that it's the chair who sits down with the executive director. It doesn't make sense. Again, if I were an employee of an organization, the governor cabinet often sit as a four-headed beast of an agency head. It's like, can I just have it,
sure.
one person sitting down with me and saying,
Walking through.
see, okay, this is gonna be very short. You have thoughts all across the board, and just whatever you're doing, just keep doing it, because here's what the comments are.
Yeah.
And the two of you have that conversation.
Okay.
And whoever, the next chair is the same thing with the next executive director.
No, I'm absolutely comfortable with that, and I agree with that process, and I think that's fair to her. And is the responsibility of this, me and this particular chair, right? So I'm absolutely fine with that.
Because I've never sat on a board
Yeah.
where the executive committee sat down with the
Yeah.
executive director, like they,
Sure.
yes, they, they,
Contribute,
and then ultimately
Yeah.
it becomes you, because again, when it's easy, yes, all three of us would say,
yeah,
pop the champagne, you did a great
Yeah.
job. But when it's
hard,
difficult,
yeah, I
it really
agree.
does need to be a one-on-one. So go ahead and set it up as a one-on-one at the beginning. And
It's our process.
again, I don't think you'll be the one who has
Yeah.
to worry about it,
Right,
but maybe a chair 30 years from now will have to.
no, I completely agree, and thanks for bringing that up, yeah, that makes total sense to me. Okay, so, Mr. Rowe, anything else that you need to add?
I don't believe so, no, I think that the timeline calls for a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah.
I have to be prepared to address this at the September 15th.
Yeah, this
meeting.
Yes.
The council, not tomorrow's trim meeting, but the next week, so I will get started right away on pulling this together, and I will email it individually, each committee member, as you can see.
This is not an item that requires, are we going to vote on this on the 15th? Is it the 15th?
It is the 15th when we meet again.
Are we going to vote on this as a council? And if we are, is it a 7-day notice or is it a 14? I know we follow the county's rules, so I know I'm out of my comfort zone there.
You're talking about the publication of the agenda for the meeting in advance.
Right,
And we try to observe 7 days, it's not written in stone.
Okay.
It's a little more is always good, but a little less.
right, I realize more would not get us in trouble. So if there was a way that we could have, so today's Wednesday, it would be tomorrow.
We
at
publish
5
the
p.m.
public notice, we typically do it Monday morning at 8 a.m. Friday morning, so that's typically, if we have a meeting on a Thursday, we publish it the Friday at 8
Okay,
a.m. If we have
so,
a meeting on today.
Mr. Ray, do you
publish
think
it
it's
on
possible to have this done by close of business on Thursday, your close of business could be midnight, but you get, so that it's part of the packet we send out on Friday morning, meaning tomorrow.
Tomorrow's Thursday.
We missed the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, because again, it's largely already written. That's the
Yes.
job description. It won't have all the fancy bells and whistles, electronic format.
That's
It'll be just the form. But we can do that later. Yes.
And then to answer your other question, I thought the council had to vote to agree on the instrument, right?
That was my fear, is that yes, they do have to vote. What they're voting on is required to meet that public notice.
Okay, all right,
requirement.
okay.
That was really my question.
Okay, right.
I feel
felt
fairly
certain-
confident it's actually already on the agenda.
Yeah.
And calling for public comment. So because we're going to be asking them to take that vote. So I'm pretty sure we set the agenda on Tuesday, I think that we put it in there.
But
The document itself.
the document itself has to be publicly noticed. It's not just that we're taking a vote on it.
Okay,
That was really my only question. And as long as, you're right, it is largely written and nobody's changed any of the format really. And again, whether or not it's in the Jacksonville format first,
yeah,
you'll have the instrument itself and then we can work on tailoring.
putting it in the platform. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so thank you for walking us through that. So we're at agenda item number 6 for recommendation of proposed executive director's performance evaluation instrument. I think we just kind of walked through all of that. Do you want to summarize any of that or, okay?
So the performance evaluation instrument will be based largely on job description.
Right,
It will have a 5-point scale. It will not have a opportunity for no answer or not applicable answer. We will indicate on the form that if a board member, a council member is inclined to score a 1 or a 2, there has to be an explanation of how that improvement can be achieved.
Okay.
There'll be a general comment block at the end. There won't be an overall grade. That'll be inconsistent. We'll generally format it after the Jacksonville base. It will appear somewhat like the Jacksonville base. We will ultimately have it in electronic format. I think that's, the scaling will be basically from the Broward example.
And there
So
will not,
that's the only other thing
there will not be a self-evaluation
we're seeing
component.
that.
I'm sorry, there will not be a self-evaluation.
And no
component.
But she will have an opportunity to provide comments at the end, correct?
That's right.
Right, okay, just want to make sure.
And in
Okay, right,
in the chair's conversation with her,
we'll
that-
review,
right,
okay,
there will be ample opportunity for her to provide self-evaluation.
Absolutely.
That's really what I was trying to get.
yeah, no, I get it,
This
right, it
idea
gives her a
of,
chance.
God, she only gave herself a 3, but what did I miss?
Yeah.
I gave you a 5 on this. What is, that?
I know,
But you having the conversation with Sika, that I think, that really is the role of the
yeah,
chair.
I agree wholeheartedly, I think we're completely in agreement with that, thank you.
Share for the timeline,
Yes.
the Friday, November 4th date, is that safe to say that process you have until prior, to December 15th to have that process wrapped up? Is that like by the 15th, does that make sense?
So are you saying, will we have all of this done by December
So,
15th?
right, so November 4th, there's like a couple of components there
Right.
that are actions by the chair and someone from the committee. There's just a whole process. Is the goal to have that block?
Done
You have
prior to the
between, you
meeting?
have, that's saying you have
Yes.
between November 4th and December 15th to
Yes.
complete that?
That's my understanding, yes.
All right.
And I do think that's a reasonable amount of time to get that done. Okay,
Oh, heavens, yeah.
yeah. I think it's plenty of time,
Find a 30-minute window, sit down.
We can get that done, absolutely. Okay, and then at our meeting on the 15th of December 15th. Okay, what happens there? What's happening on December 15th? Help me understand what's happening then. That's when
That
we
is-
decide if she gets a raise or salary stays the same. I mean, is that what happens at that meeting?
That's where that's that's sort of the evaluation, that's an agenda item
Right.
where, you know.
I
you
summarize
sort
the
of-
conversation.
And
Okay.
that you've had with her,
Right.
and here's what the board's thought, this is what Sika and I have met, and we are you're essentially continuing the contract, and, right, and if somebody wants to, you know, I think we left $5,000 on the table.
Yeah. Do we make that decision prior to, or to make a recommendation to the board? So what we meet and say, based on the evaluation that we have with Ms. Green, we are recommending that we give her the merit pay, or that we don't give it, whatever the situation is.
I think, at least for me,
Yeah.
I would feel more comfortable looking at the total numbers before, before talking about that, because if you remember my motion in making the 120,000 was to build in far more than $5,000
Yeah.
in benefits.
Right.
So I would just want to look and say, okay,
Where we
so
are.
where are we, and let everybody,
Sure. Okay, so we just have to build in time for the executive committee to meet and have that conversation prior to the December 15th meeting.
Right, and I think we should all meet prior to you having the
The meeting with her.
conversation with
Right.
Zika.
Okay,
I think it'd be a very short meeting.
Yeah.
Again,
right, but still
This
need to
year.
have it, right, I completely agree. Okay, so,
Based
yes.
on that, if you think we can update the timeline to be more explicit for that third bullet under November 4th, because it says after review and approval of the ratings and comments, the council shall direct the executive committee to share with the executive director a summary so that she gets that summary before the public meeting on the 15th.
Right,
So if I hear you correctly, you want to have a meeting after everyone's done with it,
right.
but before you give it to her.
absolutely.
Okay, so, and then have time for her to have it before it's presented.
At the
To the
meeting of
public.
the, correct.
Well, yeah, if, to me, again, this is leaning heavy on Dr. Glenn as chair, but the instrument goes out, the instrument's approved, the instrument goes out, we ask for, quick turnaround amongst the council members. All the information is compiled, the three of us meet, we talk about what that information means and are sort of preparing Dr. Glenn for her one-on-one meeting with Sika.
Right.
Prior to that one-on-one meeting, we provide an overview to Sika, the same overview that will be made public, and give her a chance to digest it prior to her meeting with you.
Right.
And then she's had that meeting, and on December 15th,
It's
it's
public.
essentially made public.
Okay,
So there'll be 10 evaluation forms, one for each council member. Will there be an 11th that's basically the summary, the average?
Yeah,
All
that's
all
what the,
That's the
that's
conversation.
that's what
That's
the
correct.
monkey survey,
Yeah.
that's whatever, survey monkey.
Yes. You say monkey survey?
I know. Well, there's 10 of us. I'll speak only for myself. The monkey and the intelligent
Oh my
people
gosh.
survey.
Okay, all right, that's fair, all right. So, and then I just want to make sure we meet prior to the meeting on the 15th. To make sure that we are prepared to discuss a salary conversation that we need to have with the board on the 15th of December.
So then you want to, y'all,
That will be
Executive
part
committee.
of, that to me, that will be part of our conversation.
Prior
you
to?
Meeting with Sika.
Okay, all right, I was
Because
thinking that was.
Here it is summarized, here we are talking,
Yeah,
what.
bring it up and talk about it
Yeah,
then, okay,
and
that
then you
works.
have an opportunity, let's say it's like, no, we want to cut our pay. Yeah, let's think of the negative.
Okay,
Times are tough, we gotta cut your pay. That's a conversation you need to have with.
okay, all right,
Or Sika, there will be no change.
okay,
That's a conversation you need to have with her. Again, she will have digested everything that
prior
Sika
to the meeting.
those
yeah.
10 individuals, and then
Yeah.
the summary.
Okay,
Yeah.
then that works. I just wanted to make sure we talked before that meeting on the
Oh, gosh.
15th. Yeah, it's gonna be
I see.
significant, yeah.
I'm looking at your face. Do we-
I'm looking out, I'm just looking at it, it was my brain works.
Yeah.
But, okay, November 3rd, the executive director, right?
Yes.
Will turn something into Dr. Glenn, okay? Should we not give Dr. Glenn the opportunity to connect with you if she has questions? Like, is that a quick turn? Because you're looking out November 3rd, she's getting that, and then for her to then turn it back over to the group November 4th.
This makes sense. Maybe-
So that was actually one of my questions too, if I may, like, the idea that if she comes back and has issues with the instrument itself, does this group need to meet again to consider those issues in advance of potentially the November council meeting before you're actually using the tool? Or do we need to wrap all this up right before the October board meeting?
So are we married to November the 4th? Like, why is that day set? Is that a random date? Because if that, then we can push that back a couple of days.
Yes, yes, we can.
Yeah.
I think this was just a proposed
Timeline,
schedule.
okay.
And not only Camry, and I think that's good for you for catching that. Well, Dr. Glenn, like, I'm sorry you're busy and you're on your vacation. We got business here. I also that I don't think that Sika's going to happen.
I don't think she will. But we don't know.
But
Yeah.
everything we've done has been on worst case scenario, so it is very consistent with that. And
Yeah.
and good for you, Mr. Watts, for catching it.
So let's change the November 4th
Okay, it
date.
may be advisable to move the Thursday, November 3rd date up so that if there is a conflict and the tool has to go back before the entire council, that we can build time in for that and still meet our annual evaluation that's completed at that December date.
Okay.
So it might be that we would prefer to move that November 3rd date, her due date for feedback to you on the tool itself. So if you need to bring it back to council in October, you
Yeah.
can.
So, so we give it to her on September 16th. I think, why can't we ask her for that in October? Like, you know,
Right.
yeah,
You're-
because there's plenty of time. She doesn't
We're
need
giving
to-
it to her on September 15th, that's
Yes.
the meeting, right?
Right, so I think October, we can move that time, then that's plenty of time for us to meet. And then we can meet then the November 4th meeting, the November 4th time. Okay.
So we also just need to do a revised timeline, but that's,
Yeah,
I think, fairly.
okay,
And that way, if you need to bring it up, you can at the October 20th meeting, and then that still gives you enough time to distribute on the 4th. And then to do other things and have your.
So can we set we're talking about just, how about we're giving it to her on the 15th and we expect her, a response back on the 29th, that's 14 days. I don't see
so,
anybody having a problem based on it's identical to the language that we hired her with. But
yeah, let's just make it an even Friday, September 30th.
like I said,
Yeah,
it's not a moment past September 30th.
okay, that works, okay. So Friday, September 30th, that's fine, it's a clean cutoff. And then we have time to meet in October, all of October, to be ready for November. Okay, sounds good.
And is it thoughtful to have a date for the council to turn in the tool?
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
So if you give it to them on the 4th, I just said that the 18th is the last, the 18th is the last day of school, right? Going right into the Thanksgiving week.
Wait. Why would we wait that long to give it to her?
So I think you would want to, just in case there's any changes, I wouldn't distribute it until the 20th, because that's a council meeting date. If there's any changes.
So she's got until September 30th to comment. Assuming that there are adjustments, it would be fairly minor adjustments, we would need to, the three of us, come back together
In October.
in October. So when's the
October 20th.
that's the meeting date for the board. I gotta tell you, maybe I'm just wishful thinking, but I sort of think giving it to I think we'll be able to give it to the
At
board.
the meting.
Yeah,
Like, the moment this meeting is over, here's the link, go
Right.
do your survey.
right, you have.
Y'all got 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Give it 2 weeks.
So
It's,
you're gonna give it to them on October 20th?
yes.
Okay.
and then they have
it's
2
due
weeks,
November 3rd,
correct?
or Friday if you want.
Either one.
No, let's do the November 3rd because then I was worried about, I don't want to run out of time and I want to give you, to me, the most important part of this whole evaluation
It's the
is
conversation.
your conversation with Sika. That to
Right.
me that's the critical part.
But I just want to give them 2 weeks to
Okay.
complete it, yeah, so if they have 2 weeks, that's till the end of, that's the beginning of November.
Yeah, November 3rd. So
November
then the
3rd.
question is, when would this group meet again?
So they would, that means all responses would be in on the 3rd.
3rd of November.
Yeah, so, and that's a Thursday?
Yes, sir.
So Friday, Saturday, how about the following week?
The week of the 7th.
Uh-huh. I would avoid, the 8th. The
It's an
8th,
election day.
see, it is election day.
And I'm just
Um,
looking over our other timeline of what we have going on that week.
I will be turning 43 and I will be in Mexico.
God bless you, Terrence. Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry, you're saying what?
43.
Do you remember those days, Phil? Yeah,
No, I don't.
when you come back,
I will be coming back in time for the 8th, so.
okay, all right, so we can do Thursday the 10th, if we can
Perfect.
make that work.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah,
Alright, I'm just gonna check to make sure on our timeline. Yeah, no, that works. We don't have any conflicting meetings already scheduled.
okay, it's Thursday, 11th and 10th, we'll convene, that I will have time to meet with Sika and get everything done, and we'll be ready for the December 15th meeting well in advance. Cool beans? Okay,
All right, so,
Wait a minute, just keep in mind, you will have to have all the summarized stuff back and compiled by that when you meet with her.
correct.
So it does, go ahead.
The meeting on the 10th with your executive committee. You'll have it
I
there.
don't have it by the 10th.
Got it.
right,
Survey Monkey's gonna do it for you.
Okay, okay.
because
So we still have time.
really essentially, we're gonna get to Mr. Rose's point, a summary, and in that summary with each question, in the narrative box, if everyone chooses to put a line, we'll have 10 lines.
Okay.
10 sets of comments.
Yeah, that works.
It'll be, this is gonna be the easiest document for the three of us to look at and sort of engage in conversation. And then you're just going to take all of it
Have a
and
conversation,
have a
yeah.
conversation.
And I don't think it's gonna, I'm not stressed at all. Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
this is the year to be
I know,
prepared.
right, I know.
You have picked a very good time to step up to leadership.
I know. Oh, my. Okay, I think that works very well. All right, so we do have a renewed timeline. Do you want to summarize review the timeline, Ms. McPhail?
Sure. So, on Friday, well, I think sticking with the Friday, September 16th, providing the approved evaluation instrument to the executive director, she'll have 2 weeks to turn around her review, switching the next date to September 30th.
Right.
Then, the executive committee, should they need to meet, will meet before October 20th.
Right.
Do they not? If they don't need to meet, the plan is to distribute the actual survey instrumentation to all the council members on the 20th with a 2-week turnaround of November 3rd. Then the executive committee will meet again on November 10th, and that will come to review the compiled results. After that, that gives the chair about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks between the kind of the holidays to meet with the ED to do all the things, and then
But prior to meeting with her, giving her the summary that comes out of our
Absolutely.
November 10th meeting.
Oh, yeah,
Just
so we
giving
need
her
that
a
on there,
chance to
okay.
digest it
So
before
she can see
you.
it before the
Yeah.
conversation, yeah, all right,
Yeah.
okay,
It's critical, you want to give
Yeah,
her
I-
more
time
time.
to review it. okay.
Okay, so it says, okay, perfect, so we'll do that, so summary given to ED in advance of the meeting.
Correct.
All right, so let me scribble that out. And then you'll meet with her, and then it will become whatever decision was made will become part of the public conversation at the December meeting.
Correct. Thank you. Perfect. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you all.
Did we talk about Thanksgiving? No.
Yeah, I had that in my mind. Yeah, she did say the holidays.
I'm hungry and turkey sounds good about that.
That was
We
under
do have a
consideration.
council meeting on November 17th, but I don't know if that's enough time. Because it's that Thursday right before,
Thanksgiving.
yeah, but so if it's the 10th, I think the way you have it written now, you're giving yourselves a much
Oh, yeah.
bigger,
Yeah.
a larger buffer.
Again, and this will be the template that will be used for years to come when everything is still going smoothly or we hit a bump in the road. And I really do. I think this is the right template to use.
I agree. Okay, I think we're good. Thank you for the timeline. I think we're comfortable. And we'll have ample time for everybody to review it, Sika to be comfortable with what she's being evaluated with. And the committee to have time to vote and then summarize and have that conversation with her.
And we've already got item 7, Madam Chair, the next meeting.
Yes, which is, when is our next meeting day?
November 10th.
Unless we have to meet in October. If she,
That is correct.
if she has issues with the instrument, then we will set a meeting in October. If she does not have issues with the instrument, then we meet November 10th. Okay?
And it will likely be that if she does have issue, that it would be that full week before your council meeting on the 20th, so like by the 13th.
Okay. And then if not, November 10th. Okay, sounds good. The next meeting agenda, as of right now, we're discussing if there are issues with the instrument or not with Sika. Or if that's not, that depends on if we have an October meeting. If we don't have an October meeting, then on November 10th, we will be discussing the results of the evaluation that we got from the full board.
And I believe determining the salary adjustment merit increase
Correct.
as set in section 90 of your employment agreement.
Correct. That will be on the agenda. Okay. Do we have any committee comments? Mr. Watts?
Good, thank you.
Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
No comments. All right, guys, guess what? It's 5:09.